Hi, hello, welcome to my updated tier list for the King 2, which is second video I made for the King 2. No, the first video I made no, this is the third video I made for the King 2. You know what? That doesn't really matter. The point is, I am finally updating this tier list with the Tinkerers of Fate update. I didn't do it earlier because I wasn't playing the game for the longest time, but recently I kind of hopped up back into the game. Played a bit, with it, and I was like, you know what, I'll make an update to that tier list since there were a few comments saying, bro, where did you go? Need to make update? And I'm like, fuck, okay, I'll do it. No, back then I just blew people off. I didn't really care. Blew not in that way. Anyway, so, strap on. This is gonna be like, strap in, not strap on. We don't need a strap on here. Strap in. This is gonna be a pretty long video, like the first one. Probably longer because we have 5 new characters. Before I start, I'm gonna put everything in their own section, so each character is gonna have their own section, so you can just jump whatever character you want, or at the end, like the whole tier list as a whole. So I'm going to, first, before I do that, I'm gonna talk about how I rated these characters, so you understand what the fuck I'm talking about when I'm talking about these characters, okay? So let me get into that. So I rated these like the first video, S through D, hopefully B being the average, but B doesn't stand for average, although in this case it does. Anyway, so I rated this, well, to be less biased, I rated these into 4 categories I came up with myself. Last time I basically did the same thing, but I rated them according to 2 categories, that being their base stats and special abilities. This time I'm also adding combat and map proficiencies, so we don't end up with last tier list Stablehand, where I ended up putting Stablehand into B tier because on paper he looked mid, or rather I didn't really understand how he works. Anyway, so the base stats are as follows: strength, vitality, intelligence, awareness, talent, speed, and luck. So these just basically affect your weapons, like the chance for your weapons rolls to actually succeed. So if you have a strength weapon, higher strength, better strength rolls. However, there are 3 stats that have some speciality aside from that, and that is being vitality, speed, and luck. So vitality basically affects your base HP. So if you're using someone as a tank, you want a higher base vitality because that means they're gonna have higher base HP. That kind of thing. Speed, in my opinion, as far as base stats go, is basically the most important base stat because it will determine how fast your character moves in combat, as well as their base evasion, which doesn't really matter as much to me, but the main thing being how fast they move in combat. Like if somebody has 81, they'll move before somebody that has 80, that kind of thing. And then luck. Luck is kind of a special stat because it's the same for every character, but it can be boosted up with like items, and there's a lucky trait that gives basically 25 extra luck, which is like really fucking good for those characters that need that extra luck. So yeah, also speed can kind of be mitigated by having the eager trait, which basically makes your character move 25% of the time when you start combat. That character has a chance to move first with the eager trait. It's not super reliable, but for a super slow character, that's pretty fucking good. Anyway, those are kind of the base stats. Special abilities, obviously special abilities, their own tag, abilities the character starts with. In some cases, I might mention traits that go along well with the character's special abilities to make him better. I'll probably also mention starting equipment in some cases. Then the proficiencies. The proficiencies are important because, well, obviously, some characters are going to be better on the map, some characters are going to be better in combat, some characters are going to be a little bit balanced in both. So combat is basically just like supporting and combat abilities in combat itself, how good they are at like killing enemies, or how good they are at, like helping out the party. And then map abilities, obviously it's going to be like more passive abilities that help them on the overworld, like to get around, or to do objectives on the map. So that's basically kind of the thing. yeah, so let me get into the characters. Okay, let's start with the Alchemist. So the Alchemist, as far as his base stats go, high intelligence, high speed, and like his third stat is kind of like talent. So really solid stats. Just base stat wise, I like the specialization. Just on that, I'd say because of the high speed, plus one singular focus for a weapon, which he wants to use the most anyway. I'd say that's an S tier right there. Special abilities, Craft Bomb, Smoke Flea. So Craft Bomb on its own, I'd say is an A tier ability. Before I rated it as an S tier, but you have to keep in mind that you're not gonna always get these bombs. I think it's guaranteed once within 5 turns, as long as you're not like there's like 3 spaces around you, something like that. I'm not really quite sure how that works. So the bombs you craft come in 4 different tiers. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. There's 6 different bombs that you can get, like fire, poison, water, that kind of stuff. All of the bombs scale with talent, and there's 1 bomb that scales with speed, so having those higher means they succeed. Bombs also cost a bonus action to use, so they don't use your main attack, which is really good, especially if you have a way to boost your bonus actions, like for example Dancing Nettle that gives you 2 extra bonus actions. And since Craft Bomb scales with luck, you can also increase how much bombs you basically get. But the reason why I don't give it an S tier, like specifically for the Craft Bomb, is because, well, it's still a chance. It's not like a guaranteed thing that happens every time. And while bombs are like amazing, they're like not an auto win. And you know, you won't have infinite bombs to use. From time to time, you're gonna maybe just like nuke an encounter with bombs, but that's kind of it. So Smoke Flea, in my opinion, it's kind of like a CD tier ability. On paper, it's pretty good. You can escape from anywhere. It's rare to just like dip from an encounter most of the time, you know. If you're in an encounter, you want it to be in that encounter. And I mean, you could dip, but like obviously you lose out from the on the rewards from the encounter, so it's not amazing. Like, you know, the escape from anywhere on like the map doesn't really mean anything, because normally, you know, the Alchemist is gonna be in the backline. Flea being 1 roll, in some cases can actually hurt you more than help you. Like for example, if you get confused and your character just decides to run away, and you know you're probably gonna succeed and you kind of get fucked over. So just on the abilities, I'd say he's kind of like an A tier, with Smoke Flea maybe even bringing it down a little bit. As I said, I can't really give it S tier on that. Combat proficiency, high speed, intelligence, very versatile weapons. Craft Bomb, you know, having bonus actions helps you like nuke down an entire combat encounter. I'd say it's an S tier. Can basically single-handedly carry fights. Really not much else to add to that. Overworld, high speed, meaning he's getting better speed rolls. I'd say that's like probably like A plus. Okay, A plus is maybe a stretch. I'd say like on the overmap, he's like an A because of the high speed, meaning he gets more rolls. Also, Smoke Flea, it's also kind of an overworld ability, because if you get like forced into an ambush, you can just, you know, dip out of it. So that's not bad, but honestly, just because of the high speed, I would give him A. In no way is he getting an S in the overworld, simply because Craft Bomb is not doing it. Like, bombs don't do anything in the overworld. And yeah, like basically carried by the high speed. Yeah, so just based on that, I would say Alchemist lands. I kind of want to give him S tier, but I feel like, you know, he got 2 S rankings, 2 A rankings. He doesn't quite deserve S tier, but I feel like if you're just looking for a quick magic dealer, he could fit in low S tier for what he gives to the party. And like, I mean, if you like just stack bombs all the way till end game, you can really clear quite a few encounters with just his bombs. So I'd say I would put him at the bottom of the S tier, which obviously he's the first one on the list, so that doesn't really say much. Yeah, so the Blacksmith. Well, the Blacksmith, your standard tank character. Honestly, probably the best tank character in the game on paper. Um, Strength, vitality, focus, something you would expect seeing on a tank. High vitality just means that basically, he has high base HP, so good tank. However, the problem is he has very low speed. In most cases, the Blacksmith always moves last, which kind of just basically brings him down to like almost a B, I'd say. The stats are good. Like, the only reason I would put it, like, I'm gonna say stat-wise he's an A simply because, he's a tank and you expect him to be a tank. So, you can't really expect him to be fast. Special abilities, Steadfast and Mend. Honestly, Steadfast is just, like, a nice ability to have. Is it the best ability? Wouldn't really say it's the best ability. It's pretty good. So the way it works is if you have a shield, every time you get attacked, you have a chance to block the incoming damage. It won't work if you're poisoned or not. Well, it actually won't proc if you're poisoned or if you receive fatal damage while not taunting. I'm not sure exactly how that works. It does proc while not taunting normally. It can proc rather. But I mean, most of the time you're gonna want to taunt on him anyway, because the whole point behind him is, that he takes the damage and not your team. The ability itself is like a B tier ability. You can improve it with like vitality, fortune, resistances, right? But it doesn't proc that often. Obviously, sometimes you'll get lucky and it will pop off, but it doesn't pop off that often, so it's just like a B. And you can also get it on items, so it's not even unique to him. Now, next is an ability that is new. I haven't seen this before on him. So the Mend ability, very in tune with his character. It basically, when you have a breakable weapon and it's going to break, it has a chance to prevent it. I played this with base stats, and I'll tell you this much, with base stats, it procs like 2 out of 3 times whenever, whenever your weapon is about to break. Obviously, weapons don't break that often, but when it does break, it kind of prevents it. It also scales with luck and vitality. His vitality is high, so that's amazing. His luck, honestly, just because the fact that Steadfast and Mend both scale with luck, I'd say, like, getting lucky is not even bad, especially if nobody else can really utilize lucky on your team. Mend is like an A tier ability in most cases because, you don't use that many breakable weapons, but it does become an S tier ability under one scenario, and that is if you use Berserk as an ability. So what Berserk does is, it's a trait that basically you unlock after breaking 3 weapons, and what it does is it increases your weapon damage by 20%, it reduces your necessary successful rolls by half, and makes all of your weapons breakable. Which is, under normal circumstances, breaking your weapons all the time is not really that good. However, if you have the Blacksmith, most of the time that break will be prevented, saving you on weapons. So, Mend can go from A to S under those circumstances. Now, as far as combat goes, he's obviously very combat-focused character. I think he's like an A tier in combat, simply because he's a good tank, but he's not too fast, so he's just gonna take a beating. Steadfast and Mend can also work really well in the combat. Obviously, Mend does nothing if you don't have breakable weapons. However, if you have breakable weapons or you're running Berserk, I'd say Mend becomes like an S tier ability, basically, to have S to A tier. Steadfast, as I said before, is just like a B tier ability. It's good to have as long as you have a shield. If you take off a shield, you're kind of fucked because it doesn't do anything. As far as Blacksmith goes, I'd say always use him with a shield. With a shield, he's like an A tier in combat. Without a shield, he's like a B to C tier in combat, simply because of the speed. Overworld, he's like a B to C in Overworld. Low speed means he's gonna fuck up the movement rolls, so, not much benefit. I'd say he's low B tier on movement, so I would end up saying that overall, he kind of fits in like this low A tier. He definitely sits like in an A tier, but it's like a very low A tier, simply because he's such a good tank. And if I don't take into account Mend and you're not using breakable weapons, then, he's definitely lower. But yeah, Blacksmith, in my opinion, is going to be sitting in that comfortable A tier. Yeah, we keep going with the Busker. So this is one of the characters that I didn't rate at all last time. So far, the two I've rated before, they basically stayed in the same ranks, I guess. Busker is completely new. And yeah, like, let's just go over his stats, okay? So, Busker, one thing already pops out, he has low speed. And he's like a strength, talent-focused character, which is honestly not my favorite way to go about it. I really hate the fact that he is that he has such a weird split between his stats, simply because he fits well with talent. Usually if you run a Busker, right, you're gonna want him to be your like money generator. You're gonna use him like, you're gonna put like talent stuff and money stuff on him, because, you know, loots are the weapon that gives gold multiplier, and his starting weapon does exactly that. It gives 5% gold multiplier. I wouldn't say it requires changing. You usually will get a new loot pretty fast, but the whole point is, you know, the gold. He's not really a damage dealer. So strength focus doesn't really make sense. The only reason why you would even want him on strength is if you want to use a different character as your, you know, generator. But I guess to an extent, if you get a good strength weapon at the start and nobody else can use it, right, it's not bad. But honestly, the stat split is just like kind of horrible, and the speed is low. He's like base stats, I'd say he's like B. Just because of a little bit of versatility, he's like a B tier on stats. Honestly, almost C tier just because of the low speed. But I say he's like low B minus, as well as like as far as stats go, maybe C. But yeah, like B minus. Special abilities, entertain and distract. So let's start with distract. Distract is not an like, he starts with this ability, but you can also get this on other characters in some of the like later game gear. Distract basically does whenever like an enemy uses a skill roll, it has a chance to interrupt one of those skill rolls. This procs like at a higher chance with higher luck and higher talent. His talent is pretty like very high, very nice, and also it doesn't work if the enemies use focus on it, but that's kind of like really besides the point. And then luck, which the thing is, normally luck isn't really like is kind of iffy, because you're not gonna go out of your way to get luck, because, you know, the weapons, like this stuff doesn't really work. But the thing is, a lot of the gold gear that like increases the gold multiplier actually comes with the luck stat. So in his case, it's actually really good ability, because you can really buff it up, and distract procs a lot, and it can really prevent like some annoying situations where, for example, an enemy is trying to proc poison on you. So I'd say just because of that, distract is like an A tier ability, especially like on him. Like on other characters, it's probably like B, because you're not gonna proc it as often. But you know what? Honestly, fuck it. Like distract, like kind of like I'd push it to S tier, because like he really like okay. I put him on A tier if you use him as a normal character. If you use him as a gold generator, distract suddenly becomes an S tier. I'll put it this way, because, you know, you're gonna end up increasing your luck stat, which basically distract is gonna proc almost always. The next ability is entertain. So entertain is it is interesting because it only procs like. It gives it procs some gold. It gains a little bit of gold if you end your turn next to a town or a dark carnival. If it's night, next to a night market or a dark carnival, you're not really gonna hang around those places, and the gold amount you get is very minuscule. But I mean, even like the 20 gold you get, like it depends on, I think, on the stage of the game. Later in the game you get a little bit more. It has some use, like getting a little bit of extra gold, but it's not really that good of ability. I'd say it's like a B tier ability, because it doesn't necessarily like do anything bad for the character. It's just kind of there. it gives you a little bit of pocket change, but it really doesn't do much. Like, overall, his, like, special abilities, honestly, I think, like, they put him in, like, A tier. Like, combined with the fact that his, like, base stats are, like, almost fucking C tier. So, combat-wise, really, he does, like, aside from the fact that, you know, if you use, like, loot and loots have a lot of buffs and stuff like that, I'd say it's, like, you know, like, B, he's, like, he performs, but he doesn't really carry your party. Like, you know, that's kind of really it. Overworld, so this one is very interesting, because Overworld, I'd say he's kind of shit if you don't build him as a gold generator. If you build him as a gold generator, he, like, Overworld-wise, he's S tier, because you're gonna, you know, like, you're gonna get, like, 20 gold, you're gonna have a lot of gold multipliers, you're gonna grab, like, a Sanctum of Elf, suddenly you're basically getting double that money. And suddenly, you know, you're just basically going in the shop and clearing out the shop because, you know, you're stacking up that much money. So it kind of, like, that's the only thing that could kind of bring him to S. But, like, in reality, Busker overall is, I would say it's basically a B tier. You know, B stands for Busker. Like, don't get me wrong, the character is good, but, like, as I said, B is kind of average. Like, if you use him as a gold generator, maybe you can kind of argue to put him higher than the Blacksmith, but in reality, I'd say he's like a B tier. Okay, so we have the Farmer. So the Farmer is basically another tank character. Maybe not necessarily a tank character per se on paper, because he's not limited, like, one of his abilities isn't locked to, you know, using a shield. Meaning you can use both two-handed, one-handed weapons, right? Which is kind of amazing, because his stat focus, obviously lower speed, right? But because he's a tank, I kind of tend to forgive tanks a little bit for the speed. I don't really care about that as much. He has the right stats in the right places. High strength, vitality, and awareness focus. Now, awareness as the third stat maybe wouldn't necessarily normally pass, but the thing is, you're either gonna use strength for awareness or vitality weapons. And any of these work, so you have a lot of options. Obviously, like, towards the end game, you're gonna focus more on either strength or awareness, maybe vitality in some cases. There are some decent vitality weapons. They're not very plentiful, but there are some decent vitality weapons. Like, overall, his stats are like probably, just because he's kind of more tank focused, I'd say it's like low A. I'd say, like, it's like A minus, maybe B plus. I'd give it B plus, because simply, like, his stats work well under any route you take for him. His special abilities, he only has one. However, it is this ability is changed from the last time I played, because last time Scarecrow, you summoned it randomly. And what it did is, it basically was like a blocking character, so, you know, a spot behind it was safe, so you could protect your backline, and it had, like, a static HP with, like, perfect defense, so, like, it would decay every time the Scarecrow's turn came, but if it got attacked, it only took 1 damage each time, which wasn't that amazing. It actually got changed, so now, instead of protecting the tile behind it, it protects the 2 tiles to the side of it. And the way it procs is, at the start of Farmer's turn in combat, you can get this ability, and it then becomes like a summonable with a bonus action. So you get like you can summon it anywhere you want on, like, the tile map. And basically, it's just like a protection. Like, anytime any of your characters that are being protected get attacked, like, the hit is redirected to the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow, like, takes 1 damage. So that's basically, like, 5 hit preventions, potentially. It won't necessarily be that. And it improves, like, the chance of, you know, like, actually getting it improves with strength, vitality, awareness, and luck. Now, the problem is, it's kind of splits between 4 skills, so it's not as common, but it still is common enough. And, like, the thing is, if you, let's say, use 2 characters with shields, you can put the 2 characters, like, 1 space apart, then you put your backline characters behind those characters, and if you put the Scarecrow between your tanks, basically, unless the enemy spams AoE, your team is immortal until the Scarecrow dies, essentially. So, like, for a tank, last straw ability is like, honestly, under specific circumstances, it's an S tier. Under normal circumstances, it's just kind of an A tier. It just basically prevents your character deaths overall. Like, yeah, I'd say it's like an A tier. Not really high or low A tier, it's just like an A tier ability. Now, since I'm going into combat, his starting weapon is actually pretty good. Like, you don't really need to change that into your loadout. So, as far as his combat proficiency goes, I'd say it's like an A tier combat proficiency. Like, it's neither good, neither bad. The last straw kind of pushes him up. He's just basically a standard tank. If he didn't have last straw, I would just like put him in probably like B, C tier and just call it like that, like probably C+. But with last straw, he kind of gets pushed to like low A. Now, if I had to choose between Farmer and Blacksmith, I'd probably say Blacksmith is still better. Overworld-wise, literally the same thing. It's just like Blacksmith. I think I gave Blacksmith like a C on Overworld just because of the low speed. Same deal. He doesn't have any abilities for the Overworld, so he's basically just like a combat A tier. I'd say he like... Honestly, no. I'd say he's like... He's probably just like in B tier above the Busker. I wouldn't even really say he's like in A tier. Under specific circumstances where you can really proc and utilize Scarecrow, I think he falls into A tier, but still kind of behind the Blacksmith. If we're talking, you're not having any mend weapons, so Blacksmith doesn't need to proc mend, then he kind of becomes A tier, but I feel like in average circumstances, he just kind of sits in B tier. Let me read your fate. I think you're watching this video not because you actually care about my opinion, but just because you're addicted to Tierlist. Anyway, the Fortune Teller, extremely new character. I mean, like, extremely new. Like, it came out, like, what, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Interesting one. So, like, kind of let me get into it, like, its base stats are strange to say the least, because its main focus is awareness. For a mage character, that's strange, but also, like it got, this, like, weapon type added into the game, which is, like, basically awareness magic weapons, like the crystal balls. They're really cool because they have an ability to basically gather focus. It basically expends one focus to prep an attack for the next turn with increased damage. I think it increases the damage, but by 250% and then by 500%, some insane fucking numbers like that, so you can really set up one shots. But like, I got distracted. Secondary focus, intelligence, talent. I think most of the time you're really gonna probably focus on like doing awareness, intelligence, but like you can really go either way with this character. Like, the stats are not bad to focus on anything. Awareness, I mean, if you're gonna really do awareness, you're gonna end up doing like, like using a bow or something like that. You're not really gonna see orbs that much. The speed, like, it's higher than 65, so, that's already like a big bonus, but it's still kind of slow for my taste. Like, the abilities overall, I feel like are like a solid B tier. I wouldn't really, maybe you could say it's like a B plus. I don't really want to say it's like an A tier because it's a weird focus. It fits its playstyle, but like the speed is still kind of low for my taste. However, the thing that is incredible about this character is its special abilities. So like, the special abilities are insane. So you have Fortune, that basically if you roll an attack and like 50% of the rolls fail, so let's say you have 4 rolls, 2 rolls succeeded, 2 rolls failed, you can basically have a chance to re-roll them and just go, and it just like starts the rolls from start. You can get worse rolls, you can get better rolls. You can't re-roll it, which kind of sucks, but then obviously you could end up just getting stuck in a loop where just re-rolling infinitely. So, but it can really save your shit. Like I have saved like breaking weapons with this before, it's insane. Like, honestly, just like with this ability itself, I would rate the special abilities at like an A tier. And like, you can increase it with awareness and luck. The thing is, if you go awareness, you won't necessarily be able to increase luck. But if you do use fortune teller as a money generator with talent, you could probably increase the luck as well and end up basically proccing fortune all the time. But honestly, fortune isn't even the most insane thing about her. I think the most insane thing about her is her fate ability. So I didn't play too much with her. I had like one proper game and few like side games. Same deal as fortune, scales with awareness and like luck. But you have a chance to draw a card from like this deck, and these cards are not just like, you know, your average, oh, you know, you got an item that like gives vision or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of the cards that are in the game. I remember a few off the top of my head. For example, there's one card that basically you use it and it just increases all of your characters like base stats by 1. So like you get 1 resistance, 1 armor, like 1 evasion, 1 attack damage, stuff like that, right? And it's honestly fucking insane. Like, some of these cards are fucking disgusting. Like, it's very random, but the cards are very unique, and some of them are like insanely strong and game changing. There are cards that you can pull in combat to basically win combat, but like the cards are very versatile and very strong. The problem is you can't really predict what the cards are gonna do, and they're gonna be different based off, like, I guess if you're in combat or not. So like, it's kind of iffy, but like all of the effects are really strong. Like, they basically, like, I mean, I in my game, like, that I did a full game on Royal Mines, I think I pulled the card that increases your base stats like 6 fucking times. Yeah, that's just like 6 base stats on one of your characters if you want to go that way. It's an insane ability. Honestly, this like ability, like, even if you don't increase your base awareness and your base luck, I think Fate is still an S tier ability. Like, fuck me, like, I'd say this ability, if you're getting lucky, it's probably SS tier ability. It's that insane. As far as like combat and overworld goes, it's kind of same deal. She's like a standard damage dealer, or you can use her as a gold generator. She's like, depending on which weapons you use, she's a really good support. As I said, if you go intelligence route, very versatile. If you go talent route, same deal, a lot of utility. If you go awareness, it's gonna end up being like a damage dealer. Like, combat wise, it's like an A tier. Overworld wise, I'd say it's also an A tier, but the thing is, if you take into account her ability Fate, it just pushes both of them into S tier again. Like, as I said, maybe it's worse than I think, but like, I had one game where it just like completely popped the fuck off, and you draw the cards quite often. It's like basically an item generating ability, but better. Like, it's that fucking good. Like, I just put like Fortune Tilted easily in S tier, and honestly, I'd say it's above Alchemist. I know I have like that whole speed rule, but I still, just because her like Fate ability has so much fucking like long-term value, where basically just like it can like accelerate your team. I don't know, like, yeah, I'd still go with S tier. It's hard to say if it's above the Alchemist or below the Alchemist. I could really like put it in either way. Oh yeah, I'd say it's above the Alchemist just because of that Fate ability, because of good it is. Honestly, I'd even say, like, if you're getting a trait on her, get the lucky trait. It's like, it's insane, like increasing the card draw. Like, as far as I know, like, as far as I've drawn, there's no negative cards. Maybe there are, but I haven't gotten any, and it's like, it's phenomenal. Friar, the alcoholic dad of the group that finds a reason to beat your ass for no apparent reason at all. No, in all seriousness, this guy is actually fucking alcoholic. Like, all of his abilities are, you know, alcohol focused. Anyway, so another tank. Again, as I said, like base stat wise, because he's a tank, I'm not really hating on his speed anymore, or like as much. his main stat focus is kind of fucking weird. It's vitality and intelligence, which in my opinion doesn't really make sense. Like, you can kind of use him as a mage, but like, it doesn't really make sense because of his special abilities, because he wants the team to kind of like group around him. And if you're playing a backline character, you know, I'll put it this way: if you use one tank, 3 backline characters, I'd put him in the backline. If you use like 3 or 2 tanks and 2 backline characters, I'd put him in the front line. I feel like most of the time I play in a way where I have 2 tanks and then 2 backline characters, so I just, like, if I have him, I use him automatically as a tank. He doesn't really make sense as a backline for me. I mean, he even starts with a fucking shield and a mace. And his abilities especially reinforce kind of not using him as a backline character. Honestly, I'd say in most cases, use a strength weapon if you can't find a vitality weapon. If you find a vitality weapon, you know, use that vitality weapon or a mace on him and just keep him in the front line with a shield. Only use him as a mage if like it's quite late into the game and you don't have any good weapons on him. But he's not a damage dealer, he's literally just a fucking tank. So like stat wise, I'd say he's like it's like a B+. I don't really want to put him in an A because I don't like I guess there's some versatility in this, but he like really wants to be a tank, so that intelligence is wasted. I'd rather just like, instead of having this intelligence, I'd rather have more speed or, you know, strength. Yeah, that's kind of really it. So his special abilities, I mean, on paper it feels like he has stacked abilities, but all of his abilities work together, so he's not really that stacked. Also, just to mention, yeah, his starting weapon is a fucking intelligence scaling, so you could find technically intelligent maces and use that, but aside from the starting ones and one from the loadout, I haven't really seen like any of these, but it's pretty good for a starting weapon. Anyway, special abilities, got distracted. So starting with cheers, so basically this ability scales with vitality and luck, pattern, proccing abilities spawning with luck. So this is the reason why I said he wants to be grouped, because he has a chance to pass his like whenever he drinks an alcohol, he has a chance to spread the benefit effects, specifically the benefit effects because of Iron Belly ability, which I'm instantly gonna go over to. So Iron Belly, what it does is basically, you know, like, I'll put alcohols on screen, I guess, about now. So all alcohols come with a positive effect and a negative effect. Some negative effects are worse than others, but basically, Iron Belly negates it. It doesn't, like, it prevents the negative effects from proccing, which works really well for what he does. And if you group it well and his stats are high enough, namely, you know, his vitality and his luck, it basically always gives some buffs to the teammates, which is amazing. You know, his last ability, Find Alcohol, which is a generating ability, which, you know, I automatically kind of want to place those at least in A. But the thing is, normally alcohols are stronger than, like, let's say, like herbs. So just because of that, I'd say I value them even more to an extent. But the problem is, most of the time, he's the only one that gets an effect unless you get lucky. And it spreads, and it doesn't just, like, automatically spread to everyone around. It usually, for each person around him, there's a separate chance to proc. So if he's surrounded by, like, 3 people from each side, each of them have, like, a chance to get it, but possibly only 1 or like 2 get it. At least that's what I noticed when I was using him. Does that make this ability any worse? Slightly worse, but, you know, he generates alcohol and then he uses it without negative effects and also buffs his allies. I mean, I'd say, like, that combination kind of makes this an S tier ability. Like, I'd say, if you're talking, like, combat scenarios, his ability is A tier if you don't have any allies around you. Most cases, you're gonna have at least 1 behind you if you're tanking, right? Maybe 1 to the side. maybe 2 to decide if you have like two other front lines. So he's pretty fucking strong. The abilities are really, like, some of the alcohols, like, the plays them on the screen. As you can see, some of them are really good, like a full heal, full restore, like 50 defenses. Others are kind of like mediocre, you know, they don't really do that much. But overall, like as far as combat effectiveness goes, in most cases, as a tank, he's kind of an S tier tank. I'd say he's higher than the Blacksmith, because Blacksmith, yes, Blacksmith might be like, well, before I get into that, I guess, like, map-wise, he's like a B tier. He doesn't have any negatives, he doesn't have any positives. Yeah, sure, like, his only positive is that he finds alcohol, which you use then in combat, which doesn't do anything in the overworld. So, you know, stacking up alcohol, you have a lot of secondary actions, you can pop those. He's S tier kind of combat. Overworld, he's basically C, because he doesn't really have anything for the overworld, and his speed is 65, so he's gonna fuck up a lot of the rolls. And so as far as the ranking goes, I'd say the Friar is, in most cases, as a tank, he goes above the Blacksmith. Now the thing is, in some cases, I think the Blacksmith goes higher. If you use a lot of break weapons, the Blacksmith is higher. On paper, if you don't use break weapons, Friar is higher. The Herbalist. Last time I put her in S tier. This time, well, I don't think much changed about her. The stats are kinda basically the same. Still fairly low speed, which is kind of common among all the characters. Intelligence awareness scaling, which is kind of not really what I like. If she was like an intelligence talent scaler, I would like her more, but with the way her stats are, you could kind of use her as a pseudo intelligence or a pseudo like awareness damage dealer, but she's kind of like more of a support, so you technically would put her on like gold generation, but that doesn't really work because of the lower talent. Overall, her baseline stats are like a B tier. Now, her abilities are what make her good inherently, so fine herb, you know, not that kind of fucking herb. She's not a cop, she's not a police dog, right? It's the same as with other generating abilities. Every 5 turns it's guaranteed, and the chance increases with luck. Specifically with luck, and not other things. So, like, it doesn't really matter if you go intelligence, awareness, or whatever other stat you want. So, only really luck will increase the chance. However, the good thing is that the list of herbs in the game are like insane. She gives a lot of passive versatility. Specifically, like, for example, using a herb is a bonus action. So if you generate dance, like, you get a lot of dancing nettles, especially if you have other characters that need bonus actions. Like, the dancing nettles are really good. Obviously, because the list is big, sometimes you're gonna have herbs that are minimal use, like, I guess something like, you know, the evasion boosting herb. But overall, it's really good because pretty much every herb is useful in its own way. Now, there's also a trait that you unlock after using, I think, the party heal action, which, you know, speaking about party heal. So the party heal is the ability to, like, either in rest phases in dungeons or in combat, you can heal every party member. Well, not every party member. In rest phases, yeah, it heals the entire party with focusing on herself, healing with 100% effectiveness, and then 50% for everyone else. Meaning, party heal is not as effective as just using a God's Beard in most cases. In combat, it will heal the main target fully, and then the ones around at 50%. If you need an emergency heal, it's pretty good, but party heal is not really that of an essential ability. Just using the herb itself is kind of most of the time better. But there's also another trait that you can pick up that's called Field Medic. You unlock this after using a party heal, I think like 50 times or something like that. It allows you to use every herb on your teammates. So considering that she usually like has a lot of herbs, it's pretty good. Like cleansing, like a bleed, a confuse, anything like that in combat is really useful. So her special abilities are like, I think the Find Herb is actually an S tier special ability, simply because all the herbs are so useful. The Party Heal is like probably like an A tier ability because it's useful, versatile. It's not that easy to get on other characters, but it's not that essential. It's useful, but it's not essential. So I think her special abilities kind of give her the S tier edge. Now, as far as her effectiveness in combat goes, as I said, a lot of herbs are like give really nice bonuses in combat, like bonus actions, like the primary action herb, quickly cleansing curses, other debuffs, stuff like that. Really good. Like from supporting standpoint, you're only kind of limited by bonus actions, which you also get with Dancing Nettles. So I'd say like combat efficiency is probably also like, yeah, I'd say she's like S minus. I wouldn't really say S because she herself is like, I guess if you build her for like properly for combat and she deals a lot of damage as well, then it's an S tier for combat combined with all of the utility. For map efficiency, it's actually not just like a straight up B tier or C tier because of her slow speed. Well, the thing is, among the herbs you can get golden roots that give you 3 focus, so that's like 3 extra movement points if you get those in the overworld. Also, you have something like focusing pipe, then every time you use a herb you get more focus, that also increases your movement in the overworld. So I'd say her overworld ability is kind of like for getting around, it's like a B plus, maybe A minus, so that's also pretty good. Now when it comes to like just placing her in a tier, I wouldn't necessarily say she goes into S tier. I think she's like at the top of A tier. The reason for that is, again, the speed and the fact that if you could proc your herbs every turn or almost every turn, she would probably end up like a high S tier, but because of like the randomness in it and the fact that the herb pool is good and some of the herbs are not gonna be immediately useful, and obviously the less useful herbs end up proccing more often, she kind of just ends up like sort of at the top of A tier. But I think she's still more versatile than Friar, so she stands, higher than the Friar. The Hobo, the guy that never fails to ask you for fucking spare change. When I say spare change, I mean fucking spare change. Okay, sorry. Last time when I made this list, I put the Hobo in C tier because I just felt like it's average in every way, but none of the actually good ways. It's like, I get the idea of the Hobo putting all of the stats that they're like the same, like on being like 75 on Apprentice, and then on higher difficulties it's like 70. It's cool. Like obviously its speed, just because of this balancing, its speed is higher than the other characters. So it's really fucking good on paper, right? The problem is the other stats being so mediocre means that, especially early game, you're gonna be failing a lot of rolls and not getting much use for the team. The starting equipment is just tragic. Like the pointy stick, you want to get rid of that shit ASAP. Like I'm telling ASAP. It's so bad as a weapon, and you can go really either way. Like you can do anything you want with the Hobo, but as I said, you're gonna need a lot of like high like tier items to really bring up his stats, so he doesn't suffer any like negative rolls and stuff like that. And obviously if you're focusing on raising one specific stat to have higher rolls, then you're not gonna be able to put on as much equipment that gives damage. So like overall, the Hobo stats, I'd give him B because his speed is higher than the other characters, but like the fact that all of the other stats are literally the same and he doesn't have any particular focus, like, yeah, he doesn't go higher than B. It's a solid B though, I think, simply because of the higher speed. So his special ability, I think last time when I did this, he didn't have a special ability, and I thought that's gonna be a game changer for him because he gets a generating ability, it improves with luck, and it's guaranteed to proc one time within 4 turns. which is really good, and it allows you to get absolutely any random item from any category in the game. Now you may think, that is fucking insane. Except that it isn't. I played a full game with him. I didn't have any luck boosting. Maybe if you have luck boosting, it's like much fucking better. But I didn't have any luck boosting. I did one game. And I think the ability procced maybe like 12, 13 times. I wasn't exactly counting, but yeah, out of those, I got like 10 gold. When I say I got 10 gold, I don't mean like each time it procced, I got like 10 gold. No, most of the time when it procs, you're gonna get 1 gold. You get 1 gold. And then I think I got like a Gambison, which Gambison is like a mid-tier item. I got that when I was like level 8, I think. It's like, I don't know, maybe if you have like a luck boosting build, and then, you know, you have other hobos to generate shit, maybe then the ability becomes like a fucking higher tier ability. But it's so weird because I feel like it's a generating ability, but it's so random, and because the like the pool is infinite, most of the time you don't get anything you actually want or can use. Most of the time you're gonna end up with getting like 1 gold, or then you're gonna get like a random alcohol or a random herb, and you may think, oh, that's pretty good. Well, no, not necessarily. If you get like once every 4 turns, you get like a fucking dancing nettle. You know, it's like, I don't feel like it really does anything, because with the Herbalist, at least you only get herbs, so like you can get something like a focusing pipe, and then spam those herbs out with the focusing pipe, getting extra value. With the scrounge, you don't know what you're gonna get, and sometimes it's gonna be good, other times it's gonna be fucking abysmal. So, yeah, honestly, it's not that good of an ability. So like, I'd say just because it's a generating ability, I'd give it a B. But because it's so random and so unreliable, that's all it gets. Honestly, I'd even almost say this ability is a C, but like obviously if you're going into C, that means that an ability is almost detrimental, right? So I'll just stick it with a B. It's definitely better than what it was when I did it on release. The Hobo definitely has more value, but it's just not that good. Now, as far as combat and map go, really the same thing. Scrounge can really help you in either situation, but at the same time, it could really not do anything either if you're getting 1 gold, like I said. You don't have anything else really going for you. You have a slightly higher speed than other characters, but you're still slow as, well, not slow as fuck. You slightly have higher speed, so I guess that kind of brings him combat-wise, like maybe to an A-. And then map ability, he's kind of like a B, you know. He doesn't have like such a low speed where you can get around the map, but he doesn't really have anything else that really buffs his on map capabilities, so that's just like a B. And like overall, I think I just place the Hobo at the bottom of the B tier, simply because you don't really have much specialization. The Scrounge is like terrible. Honestly, I maybe would even put Hobo in C tier, because he gives so little for your team that you don't necessarily gain anything from running him. So I'd say, preference sake, maybe bottom B tier, but honestly, I'd almost say that the Hobo is kind of like a C tier. He's like, I guess on the account of averaging stats out, I'll just put Hobo in B tier, simply because it has slightly, like, if his speed was the same as like most of the other like characters at like 60 baseline, something like that, C right there. But because his speed is slightly higher, I'll give him a B. The Hunter, the boy wonder. No, but like seriously, the Hunter is amazing. I think last time when I did a tier list, I gave him like A tier, which possibly was like the right call, but at the same time, maybe it was a little bit low. I know it sounds weird, because later after that, I actually did a run where I only used the Hunter on the first map, which is called the Resistance, and I beat the game with only him as a user. Obviously, I scum saved. You can't really beat solo run without scum saving, but I did actually beat him by like building like full evasion. And the hunter is amazing. So as far as his stats go, he has a focus of awareness and speed. So, you know, I love speed. Awareness, you know, is good. He also has a decent talent and strength. So if early game you can't find a good bow, you could use those. But honestly, you just want him to use a bow. Like, that's it. I guess a singular focus of wanting to, you know, be like a bow user kind of brings him down. But his base speed is pretty high. It's amazing. Like, a high awareness focus. He's just like his stats are like, I'd say solid S tier. So like if an Alchemist is a perfect intelligence damage dealer, I'd say Hunter is a perfect awareness damage dealer. And, you know, there's really not much to it. And his like special abilities complement his playstyle. Specifically Cold Shot. So like if you base stats, I say it's like S tier, but I mean you could argue and say that his base abilities are only like A plus or A maybe. So, you know, let's say S minus A plus for his base abilities, right? However, it doesn't really matter if you take into account Cold Shot. So Cold Shot only works with bows, so it's similar to like Blacksmith Steadfast. However, the amazing part about it is you only need high awareness to proc it, which, you know, not even high, it just increases the chance with awareness. So if you have like capped awareness, you're gonna be procking this a lot. You actually proc this a lot, even without the capped awareness. Like, you proc it a lot. And what it does, it basically makes your roll perfect. And it increases the damage twice. So if you were about to do 20 damage, you're going to do 40 damage. Yeah. And as I said, you're going to be proccing it a lot. So this works with bows, crossbows, and guns. So because of his strength and talent, you could also use guns. Guns actually deal a lot of damage, so, you know, it's even better. But the only problem is, I guess, the fact that you're using, like, if you use focus, Cold Shot actually has a lower chance of activating, which is kind of terrible. But let's be honest, in most cases, I'm not in the situation where I just like have excess focus. I end up using it for movement or whatever to save time. So the fact that without focus it has even better odds of activating is fucking amazing. Like, it's actually insane. And now for the other abilities, he's kind of stacked on abilities. So he has Elite Ambush and Elite Sneak, which are basically the same thing. It decreases the amount of rolls you need for sneaking past enemies or ambushing them. And Energy Boost is the other really big one. That's like, it scales with, so every time you run out of movement points, you have a chance to gain +1 movement point. I think before it used to be +2 when the game released. Important thing to mention, I don't think this can proc in vehicles, so like boats and land boats. At least it didn't before when it was +2, so maybe they changed it. It improves with speed and luck. His speed is pretty high, so obviously it increases the chance of it proccing. It's really good thing, like getting that extra movement to get around. It's nothing too amazing, but like his special abilities are like, I'd say Cold Shot, if you're talking just damage abilities purely, not like generating stuff like that, like it's an S tier damage ability. If you're talking overall abilities, Cold Shot is probably more like an A tier ability. However, together with the other stuff, which is kind of like, I feel like his special abilities kind of like boost him to like S tier special ability like levels. Now, if we're talking his proficiencies in combat, Cold Shot just basically makes him a perfect damage dealer. Like, you put him in the backline with a bow, he's just like popping everything, you know, like you just build him as a standard awareness damage dealer and he's just like popping the fuck off in the backline. Just like solid S tier. He's not like crazy, you're not gonna stack the whole game to get like bombs to clear out a room, but like he makes just like your fights very consistent, especially if like you're burning through resources and you don't have much to use anyway. He's just very solid. Maybe saying that he is S tier combat is kind of a stretch. Maybe he's more like an A tier combat, A plus. maybe not S necessarily. I personally like him because like with high evasion, he just ends up kind of carrying fights. Now, his other special abilities are actually like for overmap, for getting around the map, coupled with his fairly high base speed. I'd say make him probably an A+ tier. I wouldn't say he's necessarily S because he doesn't like he's the one that walks around the map quite reliably, but engaging combats with ambush, he can solo clear like singular enemies for free XP farming. It's really solid. Like it's an A+, maybe S- tier. Like all together, you put all of this together, like his base stats, his abilities, stuff like that, and I'd say you just kind of like push him in either a high A tier, like at the top of A tier, or like at the bottom of S tier. And I honestly would prefer putting him at the bottom of S tier, simply because personal bias, I really like the Hunter. I feel like he fits in kind of any team where you need an awareness damage dealer. So, just putting it there. The Minstrel, the Busker sibling, doing pretty silly little dances for the team to inspire them and stuff. So the base stats, high talent, speed, focus. Really nothing else to say. If you're running Minstrel, you're always gonna have Minstrel on talent, weapon, and talent gear. The others like are not even worth considering. Even if it's like the other stats, like for example, intelligence isn't horrible. It's just kind of more like for challenges if nobody else has higher intelligence. The stats are just like straight up, let's say this, base stats for Minstrel are S tier. It's a perfect talent focused character, just like Hunter is perfect for awareness and Alchemist is perfect for intelligence. Minstrel is perfect for talent. It's better than Busker because of the singular focus. It's not as versatile maybe, but you're always gonna want one character that is sitting there like possibly with a loot or gathering gold. And the fact that Minstrel is also fast is a massive bonus. Like the special abilities, so first things first, the special ability Inspire is better than Busker's ability to generate gold. Now you may ask, why is it better? And simply for the fact that for this ability, you only need to be near your ally to give them bonus XP, which can really, give you tempo in like, especially if you're like playing on a higher difficulty and you can't effectively run around and collect all the camps. It gives you a very nice bonus of XP. Obviously, you have to keep the Minstrel close to the rest of your party members that you want to get XP. The chance for the ability proccing actually improves with talent and luck. Very high base talent. And because you're gonna want to run him usually as a gold generator, a lot of gold stuff actually has luck tied to it. So the luck is gonna end up being pretty high as well. So you're gonna be proccing this a lot. And then just kind of like that tempo generation. And now if you look at encourage, you can get encourage on other stuff. Like usually you just random, like on other characters, you just kind of randomly get it from gold generating gear. It just like has encourage. However, the Minstrel does actually start with it, and it scales with talent and luck. Same deal as Inspire. Now you have two abilities that scale with two the same stats. And it just basically makes one of the failed slots on your ability rolls like not fail, like it makes it succeed. I think encourage in a lot of cases is usually a little bit worse than distract, simply for the fact that if you roll like 5 slots and you need to succeed all of them for the perfect roll, but you failed one of them, like you failed 2 of them, encourage saves 1, you still failed 1, so you're not like getting the perfect effect. Whereas with distract, let's say an enemy is casting a 5 cast, right, and he's gonna like put shields on his party, and he fails 1. Now great, he didn't put the shields on. So I feel like distract is actually a little bit better, but like Inspire plus encourage as far as like special abilities go, I feel like that combination is like A+, simply because of the scalings fitting so well with Minstrel as a character. Now, if we're talking like combat proficiency and map proficiency, right? Combat proficiency, I feel like the Minstrel is, well, it's a talent character. It uses the loot. It has a lot of like buffing, plus, you know, higher stats. You don't really have to worry that it fails. If you want, you can kind of convert over to damage because of the extremely high base speed. It's very versatile in combat. I'd say in combat it's like S tier, simply from all the value it brings into the party. Yeah, it doesn't, as I said before, it doesn't have like that potential to completely nuke it, but it's a really good supporting character in the team. Possible damage from the talent weapons. The map abilities, as I said, the thing is, while Encourage works in combat, so, you know, it helps in combat, boosting even more the combat proficiency, it also helps in the overmap. And I feel like in overmap, with the Inspire and Encourage, it just kind of becomes like an A+. Honestly, almost an S tier as well, simply because, you know, you get that XP generation. If you keep your characters close, you can encourage the other characters, so, you know, they get one extra movement point, and one extra movement point can mean a lot. So, altogether, like, I would really go and say that Minstrel is S tier, and Minstrel is higher than the Hunter. So, this one is a little bit iffy, because if we're looking at the position from just the Minstrel as what it is, if you're not specifying it for any job, I think it just kind of maybe sits at the bottom of S tier. Now, if you're using Minstrel as like your gold generator and you make him for hoarding gold, then I think Minstrel is actually higher than the Alchemist. Not higher than the Fortune Teller in most cases, but with the way Minstrel works and everything fitting together, you could definitely put Minstrel higher than the Alchemist, which is tragic considering, you know, the Busker situation, but I just feel like Minstrel is a lot more useful in a lot more scenarios than the Busker is. Plus, one of the Busker's special abilities compared to the Minstrel's is basically dead most of the time, so yeah, like, Minstrel is just like a very solid high S tier. The Monk, another new character and really new with the Tinkerers of Fate update. So, the Monk is interesting. Simple. Okay, let's start with its base stats. Strength, intelligence, fairly low speed. I say fairly low speed. I feel like that's like the Monk speed is basically this kind of speed that every other character has. So, you know, like, just kind of like B tier speed, you know, because average. And now the strength intelligence doesn't really make sense. The reason why it doesn't really make sense, well, he kind of wants to be a frontline character, but at the same time, as far as intelligence goes, the weapon type that he has, like the ceremonial staff, it's an intelligence scaling two-handed weapon. Now, the problem is that's kind of really the only intelligence scaling melee weapon that works for him. Otherwise, you would kind of put him in the backline, which you could. You definitely could. But then, however, if you do that, one of his special abilities is wasted. Now, his strength, probably something I end up using the most. I end up using him as a strength character when I use him. However, he's not really that amazing. Like, his stats, honestly, just scream B tier. Like, if you use him as a strength character, he's not really a tank because his base vitality is pretty low. So he's kind of just like a B tier stat-wise. Now, the thing is, he has 3 special abilities, which may seem like a lot, you know, from first sight. So let's start with Discipline, since it's like his unique ability that only he really has. So when he lands a critical hit or kills an enemy, when his allies have 0 focus, then he restores 1 focus to that ally. It could be like all of your, like, your entire team can have like 0 focus, and then if he kills someone, he restores that 1 focus. So it looks interesting. It could work very well with something like Stablehand, you know, with his hard work. Definitely could work. However, the problem is he has to land the killing blow, which I already don't like. On a support, that doesn't really make sense to me. But that's, you know, it is what it is. And the fact is that it only restores your focus if you're on 0 focus. It makes it very niche, so it's like a B tier ability. Like, it doesn't, like, a lot of the time you're not gonna get much use from it. When you do, you know, it's a nice ability to have, but that's kind of really it. Party heal, kind of same thing with, like, what I said with Herbalist. It's useful for what it is, but it's not essential. Like, if you're talking dungeon phases, if one of your characters is extremely wounded, right, you're better off just giving him the Godspear and he heals himself up. If your entire party is damaged, probably just use a Tinder Pouch. If you have Tinder Pouch, then yeah, sure, use Godspear, but it's not as effective because it only provides 50% healing on characters other than the primary heal target. In combat, it can kind of save you in some cases, but honestly, I just prefer having Godspear on each character individually in case that does happen. So it's really a non-essential ability. Now, the coolest ability he has is Deflect. So Deflect is actually also an ability on his weapon. Like, if you find the other ceremonial staffs, they have Deflect ability. There's only one problem with it. Deflect only works with two-handed weapons. I don't really know how that works, like, exactly. Maybe the ability is bugged, but I could only proc it on his staff or a two-handed sword. As far as I know, you can't proc it with an axe, you can't proc it with, you know, like a book, like a staff. It has to be either a two-handed sword, or a two-handed staff. It might be also like two-handed hammer, something like that, but overall, you can't really proc it with those. And outside of the staff he uses, I didn't really have any luck proccing Deflect, like, at all. It's a cool ability. It negates damage from a ranged attack and returns half of it to the enemy. That is if the attack is single target projectile, which already kind of dumbs the usefulness of it, because most backline enemies attack with AoE attacks. And, well, I mean, when they do attack with single attack, I guess it's pretty useful. It scales with strength, talent, and luck, which, as I said, intelligence doesn't even fit into the equation, and he's, like, one of his primary stats is intelligence, so that doesn't make sense. His talent is pretty low, so that doesn't make sense. Like, luck, I mean, usually you're gonna want him to have, like, a frontline damage dealer or tank, so you're not really gonna have anything that boosts your luck. So Deflect, proc, improve, aside from strength, none of them make sense. So it's just like, it's a very niche ability that doesn't have much use. And, like, altogether, like, while it may seem like it has 3 very distinct special abilities, altogether they maybe come up to A tier for what they give. And even then, if it wasn't for Party Heal, I'd say his abilities are B tier. Party Heal pushes it up to A tier. Now, if you're talking combat, like, proficiencies and stuff, as far as early game, you know, goes, his starting weapon is really good. You're gonna, like, especially the Deflect, you're gonna get the most use out of it in early game. I feel like later you don't get to use it as much because a lot of enemies just AoE the shit out of the map. And yeah, as far as, like, early game goes, combat proficiency, I'd say he's, like, probably A, maybe B tier, but probably A. As the game keeps progressing, he actually kind of falls off. He actually becomes worse as the game like, goes off, and he kind of, like, drops to, like, B tier. So kind of same with map proficiency, discipline, Deflect, Party Heal. None of those really do anything for his map proficiency, and his speed is relatively low, so he's actually more of a C tier than anything else. Like, I'll be honest, while the monk seems cool, he's actually not that good. I think the herbalist is better. So, like, overall, I'd say the monk is, like, a B tier. He is definitely above the hobo. I don't know if he's actually... honestly, I'd rather have farmer, because Scarecrow, I think, is more useful. And Busker has the option of being a generator, so I'd say he's standing between Busker and a hobo right now. So, the Pathfinder. I'd say the Pathfinder is... and last time I rated the Pathfinder as A tier, and I feel like while what I said about the Pathfinder being A tier last time was true, at the same time, I feel like I overvalued the Pathfinder a little bit. So the Pathfinder is basically an awareness, speed, talent scaler, which is a very weird combination. Well, I guess it's not weird having awareness and talent. The speed is really decent, so it has the same baseline speed as Hobo, and because it's focused, as you can see, I would already say it's better than the Hobo. The speed is not like up there with the fastest characters, but it's pretty good. So like, I'd say it's like an A+ stat line for stats. You can go really either way. You can go talent or awareness on this character. If you don't have like a Minstrel or a Busker, I'd say this character is probably gonna be your goal generator for the run. So it's like a solid A tier stats. Yeah, I know. I it's surprising I didn't go with S tier, but I don't feel like it is S tier. Now, Survey is a painful ability. It must be hard, like, you know, having an ability that basically points to your parents' bedroom, but this really makes sense. The ability didn't really change, didn't give anything else. So it scales with awareness and luck, which means that while Pathfinder you could run it as goal generator, it does actually kind of prefer being more of an awareness scaler. But if you're using it as a goal generator, its luck increases, so then it kind of like, you know, the luck kind of balances out. Obviously having both of the stats high is really good. So it reveals a surveyable encounter on the overworld within the, I think it's within the radius of 8 tiles in the overworld. So you can discover a sanctum or a dungeon, or, you know, something like that. Now, how useful this is very arguable. I think originally I said it saves a lot of time, it's so good, stuff like that. My opinion on that kind of changed a little bit. I don't think it's as useful as I said, because it's not a guaranteed. Unless you have pretty high stats, you're gonna proc it like maybe once every 4 turns, and it doesn't have a pity system like a lot of other ones, so like it doesn't guarantee that it's ever gonna proc, which is just kind of like a waste then. So this ability is like kind of honestly like a BTR ability. Like, yes, if it procs, it does save you a lot of time, but you need to keep in mind the fact that it could reveal something that's not useful to you like at all, like a, let's say, like a night market during the day, or like, I don't know, like statue maybe. Like a statue isn't necessary because you wouldn't really go out of your way for a statue unless you can reach it while using your focus. So like, it doesn't guarantee that it's gonna reveal something you're gonna want to go towards. Obviously, it makes sure you don't need to look for those items, but a lot of the time, if you go like in a city and you look at quests, you can just pick up a quest that reveals like a sanctum or something like that, because I feel like sanctums and dungeons are the main things that you want to hunt for, with sanctums probably being the main thing that you want to hunt for. But it's useful, but it's not that amazing. Now, if we're talking like combat proficiency, aside from the fact that it has speed, it really doesn't have much going for it. Now, how much better at combat it's gonna be depends if you go like heavy on talent or heavy on awareness. So it could be like, honestly, like as far as combat goes, simply because of the higher base speed, I'd say it's like an A tier as far as combat goes, maybe A-. Now, map abilities, it really only has survey for it. Yeah, it has decent movement because of the higher base speed, but like, it's like a overworld map capabilities are probably like also an A tier. It's like it doesn't really have anything else going for it. So like it moves around and it can survey. Obviously the survey is limited to 8 spaces. It's not gonna just reveal anything anywhere on the map. So that limitation is probably like, yeah. I'll just say it's an A tier for overworld, and for combat it's probably A to A- because it doesn't really have much going for it. So like with that, overall, I'd say a Pathfinder goes down from being A tier to probably B tier, potentially lower than the Busker, because I value Farmer more as a tank than I do Pathfinder as a like map gatherer. And No, I'll put her higher than the Busker, because they can both serve as a gold farmer, and Busker isn't necessarily even better. I think Busker's talent might be actually lower. Scholar, our resident writer, huh? Well, the Scholar, last time when I rated him as an S tier. I don't think anything changed about him. Like his base stats, not horrible speed, talent, intelligence, a little bit of awareness. He has, the stats in the right places. You're still gonna probably focus on intelligence on him. You could technically have him as a goal generator for your team. His speed is not terrible. His stats overall, I don't know if I would necessarily say that he has stats that are like S tier. I'd say his stats are more like A tier, A+. Now, for his special abilities, he has a generating ability, but let me just start with Refocus. So Refocus is an ability that you can get on other stuff. I think helmets, there's like a bell or whatever that gives you Refocus. So Refocus, what it basically does, it gives you a chance to gain back 1 focus at the end of your turn. It scales with intelligence. He's an intelligence character. That's very useful. It gives you ability to, like, move around more, stuff like that. Refocus is just decent. Obviously, it's only 1 focus, so it's nothing amazing, but it's pretty good. Now, the main thing about him is the Find Scroll ability. So, I think there's 5 or 6 different scrolls in the game. Each scroll has its own things. Some of the scrolls are useful, some of the scrolls are not. It procs at least once every 5 turns. That's kind of really it. So, like, I would want to give this ability an S tier because it generates scrolls. Scrolls have a limited pool, so you more or less know what you're gonna get if it does proc. My problem is Identify Scrolls. The fact that Identify Scrolls exist, I feel like it knocks the ability from being S tier to A tier, because actually maybe even to B tier, because something like maybe like Teleport Scroll maybe exists. Okay, I know it's weird to say that Teleport Scroll knocks it down to maybe B tier. I'd say it's like a solid A tier. The reason why I'm saying this is in a lot of cases, Teleport doesn't do much good if you're the only one going to a location, because you're gonna want the rest of your team. Like, for example, in the case of you trying to clear out a camp, maybe if you needed to jump back into the city, the only really good thing about Teleport is if you're going into a dungeon, because your entire party gets pulled anyway. But yeah, like, this is like an entire talk about the scrolls itself, so let me just like go into the scrolls based on what use is where. So let's start with the combat proficiency. So as far as combat goes, he's like a solid A tier in combat, decent speed, high intelligence. His combat is not getting pushed to S tier because I feel like bombs from the Alchemist do a lot more for combat than his scrolls do. Like, he's A tier in combat mostly because of his stats, with the addition of getting Purify Scrolls. And maybe Identify Scrolls, because Identify Scrolls have that thing of being able to see if a chest is a mimic or not. But that's the problem. If you see that a chest is a mimic, right, unless you have a chance of getting, destroyed by the mimic, you're gonna still take the fight for the extra loot, right? And if you see that it's a treasure chest, wait, the Identify Scroll basically didn't do anything, right? So I think what the Identify Scroll should do is, if it's actually already a chest, right? If you identify it and it's a treasure chest, it should add an extra item to the chest. Instead of being what it is now, which is just like, it shows if a chest is a mimic or not, which is kind of a waste. However, another thing that kind of pushes him into A tier is Purify Scrolls. So Purify Scrolls in combat, you can drop them down, and in a plus formation, it will clear any contaminated tiles and also cleanse the character standing on those tiles. So, like, in some encounters, it can really, like, save you. Honestly, in some cases, I feel like Purify Scroll could even push him into S tier as far as combat goes. So, like, just that, like, kind of pushes him into A plus almost. Now, the remaining scrolls, I think he has Vision, Teleport, and portal scrolls. Each of those scrolls, you could rate them separately, but they all go into map. Vision scroll basically just makes you into a better Pathfinder, like a much, like, map-wise, he's an S tier, like, straight up S tier, especially in maps where you don't have land boats and ships, because portal gets your entire party around. Teleport, in some cases, can be extremely clutch in getting to safe places or getting your party around, like, in the case of dungeons. And Vision Scroll just basically saves you time from exploring the map. So, like when I look at all of those, like, in my opinion, like, Scholar just kind of goes into S tier, because he simply has so much value for the team. I feel like Scholar and Alchemist are those two, like, kind of essential intelligence characters. They have to have one or the other in your party. I think it's better than the Hunter, because, as I said, the Hunter could almost go to A tier, but I feel like Scholar is pretty comfortable being in S tier. Okay, so the Shepherd. One of the reasons why I probably should have remade this video, because people kept saying the Shepherd is good now. Last time I put the Shepherd in D tier. So, you know, let me just, like, go with its stats. So the base stats: Vitality, Awareness, basically, with a little bit of Intelligence. Its speed is not the worst. It's faster than most other characters in the game. It doesn't really, like... Okay, so Shepherd doesn't really necessarily want to be a tank, because Awareness is not really good for tanking, because most of its stats... You could use an Awareness tank, you know, it's not horrible. The Vitality is pretty high, so, you know, you can tank a little bit. I don't necessarily classify it as a tank, so I would say that the stats are more like B tier, but I'll give it A tier, simply because the speed is a little bit higher. No, I'll give it B+, as far as stats go. I'd say it's better than other characters. Now, moving to special abilities is the reason why this character ended up in D tier before. So what they did is they changed it a little bit. So now it scales the chance of summoning a sheep. So basically, at the end of your turn, if you don't have a sheep or any other companion, you have a chance of summoning a sheep. It scales with your awareness and your luck. Now, I don't know if your a better sheep spawns with better luck and better awareness. It might be just a chance. So you can get 3 possible sheeps. One of the sheeps is just a standard sheep that has 1 HP, and if it survives till its turn happens, it casts a taunt, and the enemies then have to target it. Pretty cool, whatever. So the sheep, let me give you into perspective of how good the sheep is. So I had a game where I had the sheep stand spawn on, like, the middle right tile. Then to the right of it was my blacksmith, and behind my blacksmith was my herbalist, I think. And basically what happened is the enemies had a goblin trickster that waited till its turn, tossed a bomb. It was a perfect roll. It cast confusion under the feet, and I had to choose an option of who to move out of the confusion, because neither my blacksmith nor my herbalist had confusion immunity. So I was like, you know what, I'll move my tank out of the way, which was the mistake. I had to walk behind the sheep, because you can't move across the sheep, right? The sheep blocks your way. So I moved behind him. My herbalist got confused. The confusion made it dip from battle. And what I had to do with after obviously the sheep died next turn, because, you know, it cast annoying. But I couldn't move back in because my blacksmith got dazed in the backline, because I didn't have a helmet that protects me from daze. And I had to wait 2 turns till I could get back into combat with blacksmith. My herbalist already dipped, so it was like, I think, 5 wasted turns of combat where I just basically could have won the encounter effortlessly if I just didn't have the sheep. The sheep basically fucked over my entire encounter. And this is already after the changes. I'm not talking before the changes, this is after. So the basic sheep is a detriment. Now you can also get a healing sheep that is basically the same, except when it dies, it splashes around it, healing for 8 HP. I think it's 8 HP. I don't think it even scales, which is most enemies in later game hit you for like 30. So that 8 does nothing. And keep in mind, this just heals once per battle. So it's like a third of a God's Beard. And again, it occupies a slot. And sometimes it blocks your way and it doesn't die immediately until it casts Annoying. Other times, you're gonna spawn in and it's gonna be dead because an enemy just landed an AoE. Now, the only useful one out of the herd is the big bad wolf that scales with your level. It can either deal a single attack to an enemy, it can do an attack up or a defense up. Now here's the thing with attack and defense up. I don't think they ever fucking succeed at doing those. They're basically an ordinary wolf with like a sheep's fur on them. They're like nothing that amazing. I don't think they ever survive a single combat. The scaled HP, they usually just die in one hit. And I don't think like pets in this game are very good, at least not the wolf. If I had to make a pet tier list, I think the wolf would go like in C tier. I think the wolf is a terrible pet. Like, he doesn't really survive. So like taking all of that into account, what do I think about Herd as an ability after this rant? I think it's a C tier ability. It's actively a detriment to your party. It doesn't do anything. Arguably, I'd say it's a D tier ability because of that one experience where I just got fucking cucked by the sheep. Now the thing is, when the sheep's proc, 90% of the time you're gonna get the standard sheep, and then if you're not getting the standard sheep, I feel like there's like a 80% chance on top of it being healer sheep, and then only then the big bad wolf. I feel like you don't really get the big bad wolf that often. I did a full game and I think I procced big bad wolf over the course of the game twice, maybe 3 times. I don't like, honestly, remove the other 2 sheep, leave the big bad wolf, make it a guaranteed pet that you always have it. Fuck me, if they did that, I'd give him like, I wouldn't even talk about any of the other aspects. I'd be like, Shepherd's A tier. With the way it is now, it's like a C tier. I don't think it's a D tier. I feel like it's definitely an improvement from how it started in the game. I think it's a fucking C tier though. I think it's like, again, it ends up lower than the Hobo. And combat proficiency, nothing much to say. Most of the 2 of the sheeps are basically useless. The third one, it has some minor use, so it's just like a B tier. And then if you're talking map proficiency, the speed is kind of below average and you don't have anything else helping you on the map, so it's just like, it's like a B, I guess. It's not a C because the speed isn't so slow that it's detrimental, but it's just like a B tier. So like, if you look at all of it, it just kind of ends up averaging around C tier, which is still below the Hobo, but yeah, I just put Shepherd in C tier. It's not that good. So the Stablehand. Last time when I rated Stablehand, I put Stablehand in B tier. Honestly, it was mostly because I feel like I was putting everyone in A tier and I felt bad doing that, so somebody needed to take the fall. But in reality, I didn't really understand how Stablehand worked. I didn't value him enough. Plus you do need setup on him, but the setup was way easier to achieve than I thought. Honestly, like, I made a video after being a tutorial on how to use him, and yeah, he was like, I feel like he was the best character at the time. I just didn't really rate it like that. He got nerfed since then, so let me get into it. So base stats obviously didn't change. I think he has the highest base speed out of all the characters in the game. You know how highly I value that by now. Strength, second best stat, really high. Awareness being third. I'll be honest, most of the time you just end up using a strength weapon with him, or a speed weapon even, but strength weapons are a lot more plentiful than speed weapons, and speed weapons are not that good most of the time. So, standardly, by stats only, he's S tier. He's basically what Alchemist is to intelligence, what Minstrel is to talent, and what awareness is to hunt, like what Hunter is to awareness. He's basically that to strength and speed. So yeah, so basically just S tier base stats. Now his ability is, it got nerfed. Before, the way it worked, every time you expended your last focus, it procced an additional primary action. So you could basically, if you had the resources, you could go forever. Now it's changed. It scales with luck. The first hard work is guaranteed. So the first time you use up your remaining focus, you're gonna be guaranteed a primary action. Now, the more primary actions you get, if you do it multiple times, the less of the chance, and that's where the luck plays in. So obviously, massive nerf. You can't go forever anymore. Which, hand in hand, I don't actually think like his special ability now is essentially, if you meet the right conditions, you get a primary action. Now, how likely is it that you're gonna go a second, a third, and a fourth time? Not very likely, and I wouldn't recommend trying to set it up, because a lot of the times you're gonna end up getting burned, where you're gonna have this perfect setup and the setup fails because hard work didn't proc. So I'd say his like special ability kind of like fell down. I say fell down. Fell down is a strong word to say. It's like A tier now. It's definitely no longer S tier, because it doesn't go infinitely anymore. And, you know, like, you still need to get that setup for it to work. Like, on the occasion that you do use that ability, like, namely, if you get an item on him with refocus, it's perfect. Occasionally, you're gonna get primary actions. You're not gonna have to invest too much into getting a full-on setup. It's gonna be reliable, because refocus is only gonna give you, you know, like, one focus anyway. So, yeah, just, like, get like, refocus, and he works good for what he is. So his special ability is kind of like A tier now. There's nothing else that really changed to him. Although one thing to note is his starting weapon changed that fucking ASAP. It's hot garbage. Now combat proficiency, let's say he's like S minus. Very good base stats. As a strength damage dealer, he like excels. Combined with hard work, you can basically nuke down problematic mages in the backline. Overmap ability is just basically B tier. Well, no, actually, you know what? Just because he's high speed, I'd say it's A tier. So, like, you know, it's basically, I'd say it's like S, A, S minus A. So, like, overall, I'd say Stablehand is just, you know, I'd say he averages out at around A tier, like high A tier. Now, you could argue and say that like Hunter and Stablehand kind of go like together, but like I feel like Hunter. No, you know what? I'll just go with Stablehand being in A tier. Like at the top of A tier. In fact, if you can still get some of the setup you had before, and he just ends up popping off, and he just kind of basically out games the Herbalist. So yeah. Okay, so the Mr. Magical Toymaker, very new character, Tinker's or Fate update, paid DLC. So this character is interesting. So his stat line is very weird. Speed, I guess it's a little bit above average, but it's nothing amazing. Very high talent followed by awareness, and the other stats are kind of just mediocre. Like he has like very Hobo-ish stat line, which I don't really like, but I mean, he has the highest talent in the game, I think, which is the really important thing when it comes to this guy, because that's what you're gonna want to do. You're gonna want to go talent. So there's like a new type of weapons, rapiers, and like the two-handed katanas. That's how I played him actually. I used that combination, like I used either rapiers or two-handed katanas, and they work amazing on him. But overall, his stat line is, I'd say his stat line is only like a B tier. I wouldn't really push him for A tier because he's not really a tank. he's really just kind of a slow damage dealer, which is not necessarily terrible when it comes to his ability. So I'd say his base stats give him like an B plus, maybe A minus, but I'd say it's more like a B plus. So the main thing that makes him what he is his ability, which is called Plaything. So his ability scales with talent and luck. It's kind of the things we have, mainly the talent. Although you could definitely, like, again, it's a talent character, he can use the loot, you can make him your gold generator, like get both stats up. But I don't feel like, even with base stat, actually I think when I played him I actually used lucky. So the way it works, when he lands a killing blow on an enemy in combat, it plays like this animation, and it just basically kind of absorbs the enemy, and depending on what type of enemy it was, after combat you get a doll. So there's creature doll, undead doll, occult doll, human doll, and fey doll. I think those were the 5 doll types. And when you use one of those dolls based on the doll type, that's the kind of from creature you summon in the battle, like on your side to assist you in battle. So it's basically like capturing summoning ability. You're basically playing Pokemon with his ability. However, I don't think this ability is S tier for one simple fact, and the fact that you can only capture one enemy per combat, and that is on the condition that you kill it with the Toymaker, which, because of its slow speed, can sometimes pose a problem in doing, because you want him to be able to nuke an enemy. Like, if at the start of combat you can set up a kill, that's fine. But sometimes you're gonna end up in a situations where the combat is really overwhelming, and you can't really wait for the Toymaker to do those killing blows. So you have to clear it fast, and then you're not getting dolls. I did, like, when I played it, I'd say I was able to get a doll successfully once every 2 to 3 combats, mostly like 3. I'd say it wasn't every combat, definitely, because it doesn't always proc, and the thing is, you can only get 1 doll per combat, you can't get multiple. So it's a little bit of a problem. The only good thing is when you do summon a doll, you can't fuck it up. So that's a big bonus. So like, if you're talking like, okay, another thing to mention is his starting weapon. His starting weapon is really cool because it gives you an extra primary action, but the damage is too low really for landing killing blows. So if you have 2 options, you either change his starting weapon ASAP, or you start him. If you're playing on Journeyman or Master difficulty, no, actually specifically on Master difficulty, you get him on Attack Ring that gives you +2 attack damage. If you're also playing on Journeyman, you can also give Queen's Gloves that basically gives +3 attack damage. So to that basically just makes that your weapon, you attack twice and your weapon can hit up to 7 damage. That's just kind of like a side note. Now his combat proficiency, under perfect conditions, I'd say it's S tier. Like, the Plaything is extremely powerful. It has, like, when I used him, he saved me in so many combats just by summoning creatures. I know it's weird giving an ability an A tier and then being like, oh yeah, but because of this ability, it's an S tier in combat. But yeah, it is what really is, because his ability, like, once you have the dolls stacked up, it just single-handedly can carry combats. It's just a little bit difficult to set up in some cases because you need to do specific things to get them. Map ability, really just B tier. Nothing really that much different to it. Like, he doesn't have any overworld capabilities. Now, as far as rating him goes, I'd say he's an A tier. Now, I don't know if I would really... I'd say he's like somewhere below Stablehand, but because of the ability of being able to solo clear combats, I think he kind of beats out the versatility of... No, you know what? It's still below Herbalist. I'd say it's between Herbalist and Friar. That's kind of like, I feel, where it goes. The last character on the list, the Woodcutter. Gotta chop some forest. No, in reality, okay. So last time when I rated Woodcutter, I dead ass don't remember where I put him. I might have put him in A tier or B tier. I'm not really sure. So the Woodcutter is highest strength scaler in the game. It has slightly above average speed. Would I say I think Stablehand is still better when it comes to strength. I feel like Stablehand is the true, bread and like meat and potatoes of the strength characters because of also the high speed. His speed is above average, so his speed is not bad, definitely. I wouldn't put him in the same category for damage dealers as Alchemist, Hunter, Stablehand, and Minstrel, but he's up there. He's up there, he does his things. His stat baseline is just A tier in my opinion. It's not the best stats in the game, but they're pretty decent. Very high strength combined with also the fact that he has high awareness and you can just kind of like default out into awareness. You don't really want to do that though. Kind of disclaimer because of his special abilities. But yeah, it's just like A tier stats. Could maybe say like A plus, like as far as base stats go. Now his special abilities are very interesting because, so let's start from least useful to most useful, or just like I'll leave justice for last. So elite door bash. So this what it does whenever you have you go into a dungeon and you have a door that needs to be bashed open. He needs less rolls to do it. Is this a good ability? Fuck no. Like it's kind of worthless in most scenarios because those doors can also be bypassed by lockpicks, stuff like that. And I mean, it's just like a roll. Like you're rarely gonna end up in a situation where this is useful. And it's just basically a special ability that doesn't get much use because you rarely get any doors to bash. Now, the log cabin is interesting. I think this is a new ability. Elite door bash I think was there before. Log cabin is a new ability. So when you place down a camp, you have the ability to place down a log cabin, which basically does the rest function and the meditate function combined. So meditate function fully restores your focus. Rest option fully heals you plus gives you 2 focus. The only thing is, this doesn't work in a dungeon. This only does it something if you place it on the open world. So combined with the fact that you usually, aside from the 4 starting tinder pouches, if you have a full team, you maybe are gonna get like 1-2 extra tinder pouches during the game. You're not gonna be placing a lot of log cabins. And even then, it's a very niche ability because a lot of the time when you're placing down a tinder pouch, you're not doing it to meditate. You're doing that for the rest to heal, and the rest gives back to focus anyway. So like combining them, it feels kind of like it doesn't really matter. It's not like it doesn't really do anything. Like those 2 abilities together, they don't harm you, but they don't do anything. They're like B tier abilities. Like combined together, they're still B tier, right? And here's the main thing that he possesses that is supposedly amazing. So, Justice, whenever you hold, wield a 2-handed weapon, it can be anything, a Great Hammer, which you wouldn't use because Great Hammer scales with Vitality and your Vitality is low. Great Axe, Great Sword, or like a Spear. It has to be a 2-handed weapon. You can proc Justice. So Justice scales with Strength and Luck. It means, yeah, he wants you to focus on Strength. When you do a perfect roll, you have a chance for the attack to be converted into a wave and strike everything like around it. So like you basically hit the entire map with your attack, and it also increases the damage of the attack. Actually, I don't know if it increases the damage, but it does do like an area of effect, which is really good. And whenever you use focus, it increases the chance of proccing it quite a bit. Now, here's the problem with this ability. I used it, and I'll tell you this much. if you're not using focus, you're almost never going to see Justice activate. Like, I'm not joking. Like, throughout the entire game, I was even using the Berserk trait, which basically decreases the amount of rolls you need for a perfect roll by, like, half. And, like, I was just not seeing Justice proc. Like, throughout the entire game, and that was, like, it was the Queen's Gate. I played all the way till, like, I think level 8. I think it was, like, a 40-turn game. I saw Justice proc 3 times. 3 times. The proc chance, if you set it up so you can always add focus to it, maybe you'll see it more often, but the way it is, like, right out of the gate, I couldn't recommend it to anyone. And, like, let me put it this way, Woodcutter is like a low B tier if you're using him without the Berserker trait. With the Berserker trait, I can, like, kinda push him up. And, like, his combat, like, if you're talking, like, his overworld and combat, so, like, obviously overworld, log cabin, and lead door bash, I would classify it as overworld. With his speed, I'd say he's like B+ in overworld. Combat, with his stats, I'd say he's like A tier. Like, the thing is, if you take into account Justice, now if you can make Justice proc all the time, I'd push Justice, like, I'd push him up to S tier, but the way it procs, it's like an A tier. And his special abilities on a whole, like, on paper, they're just like kind of B tier. Like, Justice sounds a lot better on paper than it actually is in use. Like, it can carry fights if it procs. Problem is, it never procs. So, like, overall, our last character, realistically, I have to put him in B tier. I don't think he's even better than Farmer. I think probably around here, maybe actually like this. It's good. Okay, so if you use Woodcutter with Berserk, I'd say Woodcutter could go somewhere like here. If you use him without Berserk, and especially without Blacksmith, like, if you have Berserk, and then you also have the Blacksmith in your party, I think the Woodcutter goes here. If you don't have either of those things, he goes like here. Yeah, I think Monk is still worse. But yeah, I think that's kind of like where he sits under most circumstances. Okay, now that I went over every character individually and I explained what my thought process is behind every character and why everyone is more or less in place, like, plays the way you see there on the list, I might as well, like, go over it as a whole, because I'll be honest, I didn't know how this list is gonna look before I made this video either. But in reality, like, a lot of my opinions are very subjective based on the games I had, and I obviously didn't have the time to play every character to an extent that I could find all of their hidden secrets and all of their possible builds, right? So, obviously, some of these characters could be a lot higher than where I placed them, but based on the experience I had with these characters and what I think about their kits, this is the way this list kind of goes. I'd say even if I had to switch it up around, I think I might have rated the Hunter a little bit too high. I think he is still above Stablehand, but I think he's only in A tier. I don't think he's in S tier, because I feel like S tier characters more or less can kind of guarantee an auto win just by existing in your party. Saying which, I feel like if we're saying an auto win, then I'd say I would go like this. That's if you're, like, talking full auto win, because Minstrel is not auto win if you don't set him up. Because he's just basically, he's gonna accelerate your entire team. He doesn't guarantee an auto win. If you use him wrong, your team is not gonna, you know, like, it's not gonna be any more successful than it would be naturally. Scholar, very RNG based if you're gonna win. Alchemist and Fortune Teller most of the time is gonna basically stay here. Fortune Teller cards are just, like, really fucking strong. Obviously, it's a paid DLC. And for the rest of them, I'd say a Hobo could go down here, and you could end up, you know, looking at this kind of scenario where Hobo Shepherd. I wouldn't put Shepherd in D tier anymore. With the big bad wolf being able to actually show up, he's not that bad. Like, there's still some detriment to it, but it's not horrible. I'd say as far as these go, probably most of these stay the same. Blacksmith might push him down to B tier. I'd say this list would kind of make more sense under a lot of like circumstances, but the one you saw at the start, it kind of also makes sense. Maybe Minstrel is a little bit of my personal bias. Yeah, I'd say Minstrel is a little bit of a bias on my side because I really like having Minstrel in my party. But Minstrel is definitely better than Busker. Originally, I thought Busker might be better because Distract, in my opinion, is a better skill. But Minstrel having higher speed, higher talent, focus, all of that, just Minstrel is just more useful. So, you know, I'd say if you're looking at this list, I would put it either like this, or I would basically put it like this. Yeah, it's either like that or like this. Maybe if I played more, the list would look a little bit different. Maybe I overvalued Fortune Teller. I think Alchemist is still amazing. I think from the first tier list where I just was like, I didn't really think it through when I just put like production skills automatically in S tier, because one like extra alcoholic drink for the Friar is not gonna carry your team, right? Whereas maybe one bomb could, like, you could look at it this way: if is the one item that is crafted, can it carry a fight on its own? Herbalist, I'd say like if you look at it that way, Friar, one alcohol is definitely not gonna carry your party. Maybe a perfect heal could, but in most cases you're not gonna get a perfect heal. With Herbalist, a God's Beard could probably carry, like a Cleanse could carry, Scholar, in a lot of cases a Portal Scroll, stuff like that. All of the scrolls are useful in their own terms, except for Identify Scroll, it's terrible. And Alchemist, definitely, one bomb could definitely carry your team. So yeah, that was kind of my updated list. I'll make another one, probably in another 2 years when we get more characters or something. But yeah, I hope you have a good morning, night, day, evening, whatever you're having. I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.